want to thank the grace of heaven and the virtues of the masters, transmitting masters, and lectures, and everyone to have this opportunity to share, well, this topic, talking about the answers to truth. These are actually questions, I guess, that were asked of Jigong Buddha, right, through Stan writing this. I forget. If you look in the book, in the beginning, they have like a preface that kind of explains where this came from. But actually, the English, the English version, which is this version here, they add a lot more explanation to it, because for people, I mean, the Chinese is doesn't have a lot of this explanation in it, because they assume that you already know. In the Chinese, they know, a lot of the stuff. So in English, they added some other stuff. So it's not all like Jigong Buddha's, direct explanation. So plus, actually, the English version, I mean, there's a lot of some of the wording is kind of awkward. It could be better, and then there's some mistakes and stuff. But all right. But so the first part, right? They broke it. It was, I think it was based on the 99 questions, and then they kind of reorganized it into different sections, kind of related topics. So the first one, they have the theories, right? So it talks about the true meaning of Tao, Tao's divinity, the relationship between Tao and mankind, and what's the objective of Ten Tao. Okay. So part two, in the second one's concept of the cosmos, I Ching. Well, yeah, some of these things, although it's kind of interesting, I mean, you really have to study, spend a lifetime to study the I Ching, really, to fully understand it, but this is kind of superficial understanding. Okay, and then talk about the Li Tian, Qi Tian, Shang Tian. Okay, so the three realms, I guess, that we have. Okay, try to explain that. And let's see. Okay, so that's in the first two sections. So I don't know. I'll use her slides here to talk about that. Right. So the first, in the beginning, right? So we're talking about Tao. I mean, what is the Tao? It's very hard to explain, because the Tao is something that's invisible, and yet it's everywhere. Okay. But we can see the manifestation of Tao, right? So everything that you see is a manifestation of Tao, right? So basically, so in like Lao Tzu in the Tao Te Ching, right? He says the Tao that can be spoken is not the eternal Tao. So everything that we can talk about, although we're talking about the Tao, it's not the eternal Tao, which means it's not the essence of the Tao. It's not the truth. Okay, so these are just manifestations, the manifestations of the function of Tao. Okay, so because it's a manifestation, it can all change, right? It's subject to change. It has a beginning, right? It was created, and it will be destroyed, right? It will end one day, and so that's why it's not the eternal Tao. Okay, so and a name. All right, so the name that can be named is not the eternal name, and of course Tao, we just give it a name. Tao actually refers both to the essence and the function, right, or the path, right? So it's basically noun and verb. Okay, so the essence being the invisible part, and then the action is the visible part. So we're seeing the results of the action, and plus we can see it in our human actions, right? Then we can see, this person is conducting themselves according to the Tao, right, to the principles of the Tao, right? So we can see that. But the Tao itself, our true nature, our Buddha nature, that is invisible, right? But yet it is the source of all this, right? So it's the origin of heaven and earth, and the mother of all myriad things, right? So this basically is the same as saying it's God, okay? Thus, constantly without desire, one observes its essence. Constantly with desire, one observes its manifestations. So when there is no desire, there's no intent, right? It's completely, if we are completely, you can say that's like completely in a calm state, then we can realize the essence. Only when there is desire or there is intent, there is action, then we observe, everything, all the phenomena, right? But they are all part of. It's like two sides of the same coin. They're all part of the oneness. So they merge together, but they differ in name, right? The unity is said to be the mystery of all mysteries, the door to all wonders. So yeah, if we can actually try to comprehend that oneness, right? It's hard for us to do that because we are so focused on the forms, right? So attached to the forms that we see the forms, we depend on these forms, that it's hard for us to kind of see the invisible part of it, the essence, realize that. So we have to realize that it's all one part of that unity, that oneness, okay? All right. So in our practice, our cultivation, so it's not just, of course, we come to class, we try to understand the principles, and then to guide us, ultimately and through that understanding, through that learning, through the practice, we try to arrive at that oneness, that unity, okay? Through our actions, through our thoughts, through our being, to get there. And so it has to come from within. I mean, we can't really, there's no way to describe what that oneness is. And so basically, once we realize it, basically we're enlightened, we're awakened, we're aware, totally, completely aware, okay? But I don't think we're there yet. All right, so we're all learning. Okay, so the Tao is really, right, it's the absolute truth. Of course, it always existed, right? The universe is a phenomenal world, and it was created, okay? So, but the Tao existed before that, of course. Basically, you can say that things happen in cycles, okay? So even the Tao, we know that all this phenomenal world, everything happens in a cycle, but the Tao is kind of the way it operates, if you will. It's kind of like in a cycle too. I mean, it goes through the phase of, going from stillness to action or motion. Okay, so once you reach the peak of, just like in the yin yang, right? The yin yang chart, right? You have the yin starting with the yin, and then it goes gradually towards more yang, right? Towards the top, and then once you reach the peak of yang, it starts going into yin again. Okay, so it's the same thing. It's kind of like this continuous cycle. So in the Tao, in the essence, you can say it goes through that cycle too. That from complete stillness, it can't be maintained. It cannot stay in stillness all the time, right? Because if it stayed in stillness, there would none of this would exist. Okay, so for whatever reason, it's just natural. It just goes into motion. Starts in motion. That's that spark. It's like when we have a thought just popped in our mind. Okay, that is starting the motion, and then so everything gets created. So it's pretty amazing. Okay, and so this Tao, this essence, of course, is everlasting. Everything comes from this Tao. So the Tao is also you can say it's infinite energy, right? Obviously, there's this whole universe. You imagine how much energy is contained within the universe, but that's only still a small part of it. Okay, so it's still a finite amount. But the Tao is, you can say, it's unquantifiable. All right, so you might say it's infinite. But okay, so the Tao exists in everything. So not just the physical matters, but also as a human being, sentient beings, in life. Okay, and so those. In terms of human beings, it would be, or even animals, sentient beings, that we call those virtues. Okay, so and I think we'll talk about that a little bit later. So again, it's the essence and the manifestation, right? So we can't. We tend to focus on the manifestation because we are so dependent on our senses, and that's what we see it. But we have to realize that there is that essence, that Buddha nature. Okay, okay, right. So it's okay. So I talked about this. The essence of all phenomena is Tao. Okay, So the truth is essence. Okay, of all reasoning, the truth is manifestation of Tao. Okay, right. So that essence within humans is called the true self, or Buddha nature, true nature, right? And then so there are various ways to talk about that in terms of the manifestation, like the principles, through our conscience. Okay. Yeah, we kind of use the symbol, this like a zero or a circle, to represent the motionless state of the Tao, right? And then when it goes into motion, it becomes like a line. Okay, we use that to represent the state of motion, the active state. All right. So, and then from that's how we end up creating that yin-yang chart. Okay, once it starts going, the motion starts creating the duality, right? Because initially with this circle, it represents unity, just oneness. And then once it starts going into motion, then you have distinction between yin and yang. Okay, before that there was no yin and yang, right? Okay, so here, like this is in the book, it talks about these symbols, right? The symbols used in Buddhism, right? You see this symbol here. Note that this is not the same as the swastika that the Nazi. It's reversed. They reverse it and put it at an angle, but they kind of use this symbol, but yeah. Yeah, this is supposed to represent the turning of the Dharma wheel. Yeah. And then in Taoism and Confucianism, right, they use the yin and yang, the Tai Chi symbol. Christianity, they use the cross. Okay, but really, they symbolize the same thing. All right, they symbolize the same thing. Okay, just in different ways. Because we're talking about manifestations. We can, these are, you can say, kind of symbols of, but trying to describe this thing here, which is hard to describe, but we can talk about it in different ways. Okay, so all right, so there are, remember those three levels, okay, this is talking about, okay, sorry, this is talking about the three kind of, these are kind of like three different levels of life energy. Okay, let's put it like life energy. Plants, right, they're living. Okay, so this type of, these three types of energy, Sun Qi, Hun Qi, and Ling Qi, okay, the physical, these inanimate things, they don't have this kind of energy or this spirit, if you will. Okay, this is only for living things. Okay, so including plants, right? So Sun Qi is the spirit of growth, right? So all plants have that, right? So that's why they can grow. Of course, all living beings have that. Not just plants, but animals and humans have this spirit of growth. That's what allows things to grow. Okay, like plants are interesting because although they're not sentient, right? They can't think. They don't have that conscience, and they don't really have feelings. They can, as long as the conditions are right? The conditions have to be right for them to grow. Okay, so like a seed, you can preserve a seed there's a seed bank, right? I think it's in Norway, that they try to preserve all the seeds in the world, right? So in case of there's a apocalypse or whatever, everything's destroyed, and then they can hopefully take those seeds and replant them. Okay, but those seeds can last, can be preserved for thousands of years, probably much longer, right? As long as they preserve proper conditions. And then once you give it the right conditions, put it in the soil, water, sunlight, then it'll grow. Okay, so that's what that Sun Qi, that spirit of growth does. Okay, all right, and then the Hun Qi, right, is spirit of awareness. Okay, so animals are aware. Okay, so they can obviously they can feel, right? They have feelings. But it's very basic, right? So it's not like awareness like in what Descartes say, I think, therefore I am, right? There's no that kind of reasoning, all right? So it's just awareness of being, I guess, or of just, they may not necessarily have that high level of like a self-identity, self-awareness, okay? It's just aware that, yeah, they need to, we call it like instincts, right? They need to survive. They know when it's cold, they need to find shelter, things like that, right? And then so only humans have this ling qi, or this soul, okay? And that allows us to be truly aware, okay? Really aware, okay? When we talk about that true awareness, and to become enlightened as well, okay? So that is kind of a differentiation. So you can say that humans are, above the animals. That's true, but animals. Okay, yeah. Actually, there's a question. We always talk about humans. Sometimes if we eat too many animals or whatever, I mean, we become animals in the next life, right? But actually, not all animals are reincarnated from humans. Right? If you think about it, in evolution, animals came before humans. so they couldn't have been humans before, right? So basically, animals, I mean, it's just that is part of the natural evolution of life, right? But nowadays, once there are humans, and if humans become, just turn their back to heaven, that's really the idea of being an animal, right? Your back is towards heaven, right? Because they're kind of usually on all fours, right? And so the back is towards heaven, so we turn against heaven, we turn against our conscience, right? We do things that are unconscionable, then we become animals, okay? So today, I would say like the domestic animals that are used for basically food and things like that, domesticated animals that are being used by humans, are ones who are reincarnated by humans, okay? All right? Okay. Okay, so in the Doctrine of the Mean, so all the religions, they're all talking about this Tao, right? And so Confucius, he's talking about here, he says, the Tao that cannot be deviated from momentarily, right? If it can be deviated from, it's not the true Tao. So it's like being, if we can deviate from it, the true Tao, okay, so Zhuangzi, right, he uses the example, right, a fish in the water, right? A fish doesn't know that it's in the water. I mean, it's just, this is its environment, right? So it's just, but it doesn't know anything about the water. But if you take the fish out of the water, it's not going to survive. Right? It's the same thing. So we don't see this Tao, we don't realize we're in the Tao, or the Tao is within us. And if the Tao is missing, if we leave the Tao, then we won't be alive. Okay, so that's the same analogy. Right. So this also it's kind of to remind us that we have to follow the way of the Tao. Okay, that if we don't follow the way of the Tao, you can say that although we can live out our lives, but we create karma, we're going to reincarnate, all that. Okay. All right. So, what's the objective of Tao? So now we're talking about Tao in kind of a different way, right? The Tao that we were talking about earlier is kind of about the essence, the truth. Now we're kind of talking about, what's the purpose of Tao among humans, the transmission of the Tao, right? So to spread that truth, talk about this truth, to find our true self, our true nature, right? We show respect to all the saints and Buddhas, immortals, etc. We follow the laws of the land, right? Propriety. We restore our innate virtues. We have to be filial, right? These are all various virtues that we follow. So again, that's following the Tao, right? Trustworthiness, okay, be harmonious, and of course we have to try to get rid of our bad habits and temperament, right? Because those are the things that are part of this qi, okay? Right? We have that qi, well, I guess I don't know, it talks about that. Okay, well, this, okay, well, but yeah, so we're all born with certain temperament, okay? The temperament depends on, you can say, like, in astrology, they say, oh, what sign you are, depending on your sign, you have this type of temperament, and it's generally true, okay? I wouldn't say it's 100%, but it's based on some truth, okay? And so depending on when we are born, where we are born, all that, these different factors, then we'll have a certain, that qi, our qi xing, that qi aspect of ours is kind of modified, okay? And so then we'll be born with those characteristics, right? And so we have to, it's kind of you can say it's kind of a handicap for us in this life, okay? Everyone has a different handicap in that sense. And so we have to kind of overcome that because that's not part of our Li Xing, which is our true nature, okay? So the true nature, originally, before we're born, right, that true nature does not have any of that temperament or the bad habits, of course. So in order for us to go back to heaven, right, so if we originally came from that pure origin, the heaven, we call it absolute heaven, and to this world, and we want to go back, then of course we have to restore ourselves to that original state, right, which that pure state. So therefore, anything that doesn't belong to that pure state, we have to get rid of, including all our bad habits, our temperament, our wrong ideas, everything, okay? All right, and our attachments, especially to this world, okay? Attachments to the material, to the forms, because the more we're attached, the more we're attracted to this world, right? Which means we're just going to come back. So if our goal is to leave this world, then we have to get rid of those attachments. Okay, so within the human being, right, we have the five constant, or this is how Confucius talks about it, the five constant or innate virtues of the Tao. Okay, so we have, it's benevolence, right? Benevolence, propriety, justice, justice or righteousness, and wisdom. And then the center is faith, or, I would say, faith, sincerity, genuineness, okay? The key, the core is, whatever's in the middle, right? That's the central, the core of it, okay? So that's the most important aspect. That faith, this is not like faith in something external, all right? This is the internal faith. And this is, so that's why, I was talking about sincerity or genuineness, right? We show our true self, okay? And so this kind of drives, or is the key to all the other virtues, right? So we can perform proprieties, we can show benevolence or wisdom or justice, but we have to have that sincerity when we do it, okay? When we perform those, manifest those, all right? And then so these are, they have like associated, when talking about the I Ching and all that, it's associated with various things like directions. So propriety is associated with the south, and which is interesting because if you look in the human society, it's generally the case, right? Like in the U.S., right? In the South, propriety is, or they manifest propriety more than they do up in the North. If in the South they're very courteous, their manners, all that, and that's true. And in the West, okay, versus the East. So, like the East, although China, right, they consider themselves to be the center, okay, the center of the world, right? So they're going to be in the middle, but the East, it's everything's relative here, but the East versus the West. So the West, we typically think of, the U.S., maybe the Western societies. Their focus mainly is on righteousness, right? Laws, things like that, being right, okay, doing the right thing. Whereas in the East, it's more about benevolence, compassion, kindness, understanding, right? And if you look at the world, it's generally true. Okay. Now, and then so then there's the wisdom. Well, north is I don't know if the north versus the south. I'm not.
More cold.
Huh?
And more cool-minded.
Cool-minded, cold. North. I don't know. I don't know how that.
Cold equals to wise people.
But yeah. Okay. So, but anyways, these are kind of like the basic characteristics or virtues of our true nature, of that Tao within us. Okay. And then from those, of course, we talk about the 8 virtues. The various different virtues when we interact with people. Okay. So like filial piety. So that's a specific virtue, which kind of you can say comes from mostly from benevolence. Okay. That how we deal with our parents. Okay. But so it's kind of like the combination of these basic virtues that give rise to the other virtues. Okay. So the Tao and religions. Okay, so yeah, so all the religions, they all originated with the Tao, right? The truth, the original truth. It's just that when it becomes a religion, definition of a religion is kind of like it's become an institution, okay? But before it's an institution, it's a teaching, right? So religion is a teaching, spiritual teaching. And so all forms of spiritual teaching, because they're all manifestations, you can say, of the true principles of the Tao, right? Now, how it turns out later on, after hundreds or thousands of years, religions become, they deviate. They start to deviate from that truth, that original truth, okay? Because the people, that it's being passed down, but the people after each generation, it's like that game, the telephone, right? And you tell the next person, you pass a message, and it gets passed down. In the end, it's a totally different message. Okay, so that's what happens. Okay, in religion over time, even though the scriptures are still there, but the problem is the interpretation. Whereas the interpretation can change over time, and so that's the nature of religion. Okay, among humans. So, today, do we really know the true intent of, Jesus, what he was trying to say, or what Buddha was trying to say? A lot of people probably don't really understand that, and so we kind of deviate from that truth. But originally, they're all talking about that truth. But because they're using words, they're using language, which has limitations. Basically, it's a cultural limitation. Then those are manifestations, and so all forms of manifestations are, by definition, they're limited. Okay, and so they cannot fully describe that essence, that truth. Okay, but they try their best. Taoism, right? The way it tries to talk about that truth is talking about wu wei, or non-motivational action, right? So that's just the action that comes naturally, that's without any kind of intent or thoughts. It doesn't mean, some people, they misinterpret that as saying, oh, you don't do anything. No, it's not. that's not what it means. Okay, so it's basically, it's coming from that true heart, from that true, this center here, the sincerity, that genuine self. Okay. Yeah. It's you can say it's unconditional, right? So it's not. You don't do it because of something external condition. All right, it's just quote unquote the right thing to do. Okay, the proper thing to do.
Is.
Yeah, I mean that's Zen. It's just the Buddha nature, right? Okay, in Buddhism, they talk mostly about compassion, right? Which is another aspect of that. Okay, so showing compassion, showing respect for all living things, all beings. All right. Confucian talks about humanity, right, or reciprocity among humans. Okay, so this is kind of more although they all talk about in various ways of how people should treat each other, Confucius talks more. It's more. He has like a whole system of moral conduct that how we should relate to other people, and so it's more specific and has more detail. Okay, in his teachings. But all right, and then Christianity, of course, he talks about brotherhood or love everyone. And then in Islam, its focus is mostly on the righteousness. Okay, so that's why they have very specific, very strict disciplines and laws. Okay, right. But of course, you can see that things can get abused and taken to extremes. Okay, and that's the danger. So once we leave. And then so there's something called the mandate, heaven's mandate, in which Lecturer Kai will talk about in the next class. But once we don't have that mandate, then we kind of do things on our own, okay? And we decide, so that's where the religions they start deviating, right? So once the religions, they originally had that mandate, so they had that truth, the authority to pass on that truth. But then once that authority disappears, it's gone, then it's subject to human interpretation. Okay. All right. So this, okay. So starting from the oneness, the unity, we end up with, we having motion, action. We have the yin and yang, right? Then you have the differentiation, distinction, positive, negative, male, female, all that distinction. But you see that being oneness is absolute, but this is relative here, the yin and yang, right? The symbol shows that it's not just that things are constantly changing, go through the cycle of this motion, but that it's relative. So nothing is absolute. It's not absolute black or white, right? There's a black dot in the white section and a white dot in the black section, right? So there's no absolutes in this world, okay, in this universe, all right? And it's through the interactions between this yin and yang that everything gets created. Okay, but they follow certain principles of how things are created, which we're not going to kind of talk about this, but this, okay, I'm going to skip this too because let me show. Right, so in the 5 elements, right? So because the 5 elements basically kind of are the basis for the material world, right? And so the interaction between yin and yang, right? Basically, there's certain principles that it follows. So, like, for example, like water gives rise to what's the wood element, right? Basically, the wood element, you can say, represents life, okay? The living beings, living elements. So basically, all living beings depend on water, right? So like scientists, right, astronomers looking for life on other planets, what do they look for? They look for water. If there's no water, there's not going to be life, right? So that's that principle there. And of course, when there's especially life by organic matter, right? It can burn, right? It creates fire, and then fire, what happens? The stuff gets burned, it becomes ash, so it goes to earth. And within that, there's minerals, and there's the metals within that. Okay, and then why does metal create water? Well, there's condensation, right? For when right. So when the temperature, you have humidity and temperature, then it condenses the water. But anyways, okay. So that's kind of that. That's the you can say the positive or the I don't know, was in the answers they use stimulates, so one stimulates the other, and then there's the other one, which is kind of the controlling aspect, which is kind of the opposite.
One inhibits.
Or inhibits, right? One is promotes and one inhibits, yeah. And so those are basically those are the types of interactions that happen among the elements to. And so everything follows these principles. Okay, all right. Okay, so I'm not going to go into the detail of that. But, all right. Oops. Where's the? Oh, what happened to? Oh, here. Okay. Okay, so we have the three levels of heaven, right? So absolute heaven, celestial heaven, physical world. We, although we are in this physical world, right? We have a physical body. We actually are part of all three. We are in all three. You can say we're all in all three at once, right? Our Buddha nature exists everywhere. So it's in the absolute heavens and celestial heaven, right? Basically, we have that. Remember those three different chis, right? So then that chi of the the chi that we're talking about is that chi of temperament and things like that. So that would be part of the celestial heaven. Okay. Well, in Buddha's terms, right, they use Dharma Dhatu to represent that absolute heaven or that absolute reality, and our Dharmakaya is that true nature, that Buddha nature. Okay. They represent that celestial heaven. They use the Sambhogakaya. Okay, and then the physical manifestation is the Nirmanakaya. Okay. All right. So we want to return back to the Dharma Dhatu, the absolute heaven, right? So we have to kind of get rid of the body, and get rid of the temperaments, things like that, okay, to return back to the absolute heaven, right? Of course, I mean, it doesn't mean that, I'll kill myself so I can go back, but we have to, the reason why we're alive is, well, usually it's because of karma, okay? So we have to pay back our debts. We have to do good deeds. Doing the good deeds is, partly to pay back our debts, but also doing it because we're supposed to do those things. Okay, we're following our true nature. All right. Okay, so this is the cycle. Yeah, the cycle of heaven and earth. Right, this is the one that you typically see. Right, starting from the bottom here, Zi is the beginning. Okay. So from this yin and yang chart in this Tai Chi chart, it starts at the bottom here, goes clockwise. So Zi Cou Yin Mao Chen Si, and then Wu Wei Shen You Xu Hai. Okay, so the white part, of course, that's the growth part. So starting from the bottom, you start with, it's the maximum yin, right? The black part is the yin. So starting from the minimum, and then works its way to the maximum at the top. The Wu is maximum yang, okay? Once we're there, though, we can't stay there, right? Things are constantly in motion. So then we will go into decline, into the regression phase, okay? Okay, so now when we apply this so this, obviously, this can be, this is a cycle that can be applied to anything that has a beginning and an end, okay? It's just a question of how long that cycle is, right? So in terms of human life, right, we're born, we grow, we get older, and then eventually we die. Okay, so and then kind of starts over if we reincarnating. In terms of like the Tao view of the world, okay, so this one cycle is right here, 129,000. Well, it's actually, this is a mistake. It's 129,600 years, okay? And so that's one cycle. So each of these, since there are 12 of these periods, right? So each period is 10,800 years, right? We're now in this cycle. We are now past the Wu phase, and we're entering the Wu Wei, okay? So we're past the peak already, all right? We're basically past the peak. So even though we are still, you can say civilization is still kind of developing, it's also in decline, right? So we are advancing in science, technology, but in terms of morality, ethics, that's in decline, and it has been in decline for a while, actually. So that's kind of leading us to decline. So it's not science or technology cannot save us, okay? Basically what it's saying is science and technology cannot save us. Okay, so it's really the morality that can save us. All right, so but morality is already in decline, and so it's already, this whole thing is in decline. The Wei phase. All right, so we're in the white period, right? We know that we're in the white period. which is basically, you can say, the start of the Wei phase. So the Wei to Sun. Okay, and so of course during this time there's going to be a lot of calamities. It's the end of the world type of stuff, the apocalypse, things that are in the scriptures, all the scriptures. Right? They talk about that. Yeah, and it's not that God is gonna it's basically due to the karma, all the karma that's being created. Okay, so it's gonna come manifest.
Bear fruit.
Yeah, it's gonna bear fruit during this time because it's about timing really of everything. Okay, but after the so during this 10,800 years, so at some point, right, there are 81 calamities, right? The 81st is the big calamity, the big kahuna, right, of this time period. Now, we already saw, you can say, an example, of that, World War II, right? 2 atomic bombs were dropped. Okay, we got a taste of that. But that 81st is going to be much more than that, okay? So and that will definitely wipe out most life. But there will still be those who survive, right? Those who survive, right, will be the ones who are cultivators and who are vegetarian, okay? It's at that point that basically Maitreya Buddha manifests or announces himself that he, because he will be ruling over, you can say ruling over that. That will be, after that big calamity, then there will be peace and harmony in the world because, the few people who are left, they're cultivators, right? Okay, so, and at that point, basically, all the people during this white period who kind of went to heaven, basically, I mean, they received that, they've gone to heaven, they're going to come back again. They're going to be reborn during that time, okay, to live in this paradise or heaven on earth, okay? And then they can listen to Maitreya Buddha's teachings in this world, okay? So that's kind of how it's supposed to work out, okay? Eventually, right, there's human life now, whether or not humans completely disappear from the world, right, after that time period, the white period, because it says here that mankind will be destroyed after this time. From the science point of view, we know about evolution, and it's hard to say that humans can disappear and then they can reappear in the next cycle. Perhaps, I don't know the answer to that. Perhaps some humans are left over to start as the seed to start the next cycle, or perhaps there is some kind of aspect of evolution that happens, that the animal life that's there will evolve, and then again we have humans again. But although there's still that missing link between right, they say that between apes and man, okay, that it's not clear whether we evolved from apes too. So, but anyways, there's a question here about that. All right. Okay. So that's the end of this one. Let me see if there's other thing I want to mention here. Right. Okay. The Chiten. Oh. Okay. Right. So everything in here represents the physical world, the Shangtian, and the Qitian, that spiritual, the celestial realm. Okay, so the celestial realms, perhaps not all, right? The highest levels of the celestial realms, I don't know if the Arhat realms, are they in that's considered to be celestial realms? No, they're already beyond that.
Yeah.
All right, so, but anyway, all
Celestial realm is
are under
the three. Remember we said
right.
three worlds. The world
desire, form,
the
and
world of
formlessness.
form.
Okay.
Those are celestial.
Okay, and so those are okay. So yeah, so all those follow this cycle, right?
No, only in the realm of
Desire and
formless,
form.
There is they're not going to be destroyed.
The form, the non-form.
The The non-form. will
Yeah, the
not be
non-form,
destroyed.
right, right.
And the highest levels are pure abodes of the
Form.
formless.
No, the form.
The form will not be destroyed.
Right, okay. Yeah, so there's some, yeah, because there are like 33 levels of,
Yeah,
you know,
very-
these
yeah.
celestial heavens,
Yeah,
whatever.
I talked about
And
that
then
last time.
so the highest levels are not destroyed when
Right.
in this cycle, okay? So it's only the lower levels that are destroyed.
No,
No,
52
no,
is
that's
the
levels of
That's-
cultivation,
that's-
okay, but
yeah, that's the-
achievement or achievement.
Yeah, stages.
Yeah, stage of achievement.
Stages,
Uh,
levels of
The
achievement.
33 is talking about the heavens, the levels of heaven.
Yeah,
The
in the three realms.
Yeah,
right?
right.
The realm of desire, form, and formless.
right.
So we say 33. I mean, who knows? There could be
Yeah,
more.
yeah.
But you know, it's how you define it.
Right.
It's not. It's okay. But in the form of realm of formlessness,
Right.
which has four levels, the four
Right.
dhyana
Right.
heavens, that will not be destroyed.
Right.
So they will not. I mean,
They're not subject to this.
yeah, they're not subject to destruction.
Right.
But the people,
They still
form,
will have
I mean,
to
the
reincarnate.
beings in there will still
Reincarnate, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah,
But in their, they can reincarnate in the upper realms.
yeah,
those
yeah,
realms.
but their reincarnation cycle is very
It's much
long.
longer, yeah, it's much
like
longer.
thousands of Mahakaya,
Yeah.
Mahakalpas.
Yeah,
I mean, that's,
whatever,
you know,
yeah.
that's how many times
Yeah,
of this.
who knows how many, yeah, right.
How can heaven be destroyed?
No, not okay.
It's not. It's not.
We're talking
absolute
about-
heaven. These are all
Temporal
relative.
heaven.
These are all relative.
Yeah.
relative.
So that relative just means that there's a beginning and end.
Yeah.
That's all it means. There's a beginning and end. It's just that the time frame is very, very long,
Yeah,
right?
right.
You know, okay. But certain heavens will not face destruction, but the beings in there will still have to reincarnate.
Right, right.
But over long,
Yeah, yeah,
long
right.
you know, cycle of time.
Yeah, this heavens, right, it's okay, so, well, in Chinese, they use the word tian, okay, but, I mean, okay, so we live in the physical world, but there's also the spiritual worlds, right, the spiritual worlds, so those are in
The
what we call
celestial.
these relative heavens, or celestial heavens, okay, and those are just, they're less tangible, less physical, I mean, they're more ephemeral, okay, they're like, well, you know, like we see ghosts or spirits, right? So, they're, you know, they can, from a science point of view, you can say that they're probably in higher dimensions, okay, beyond the third dimension, okay, and so we cannot see them normally, right? But they can be aware of us, the lower dimensions, right? That's a fact that we know that. So basically, you know, at the higher the dimensions, so maybe, you know, these higher heavens are, you know, higher levels are higher dimensions, right? That's might be one way to try to explain it in scientific terms, right? Okay, so, but anyways, that's, yeah, I guess that's kind of, let me see. What else, is there anything else in here? Okay, so that's basically for these two sections. Anyways, time is up, so, any questions? Oh, okay, so I guess we can end it then, right? All right, so thank you. If I had said anything wrong, I ask the Buddhists for forgiveness and your corrections.